Okay, happy Friday, everybody. Hold on one second. I'm going to tip this up so people on Instagram can see my face. There we go. Happy Friday, everybody. It's Dr. Bridget Young from babyformulaexpert.com here to do a happy hour about how to boil your water to sterilize your formula. I have been wanting to do this happy hour forever, but for those of you who know me, I have 2 toddlers and they're always around. So I did not want to do boiling water or any dangerous stunts of any kind, but they're having a men night away. So they're with daddy, which is why I can do this now, and also why my kitchen looks so clean, because it does not normally look like this. So for those of you that don't know me, welcome. I'm Bridget Young. I'm a doctor of perinatal nutrition and a certified lactation counselor and founder of babyformulaexpert.com. And today I'm going to show you how to boil your water to sterilize powdered formula, which is based on WHO and CDC recommendations. And I'm going to add in a few mom hacks to show you how to do it without wanting to kill yourself every time you have to make a baby for your bottle who is likely screaming on the ground in front of you with hunger. So before I get to it, I wanted to very briefly tell you why you might need to boil your water. So if you buy European formula, you know it says on the back that you need to boil your water to make every bottle. In the US, the standard recommendation is that if you're using powdered formula, you should boil your water until the baby's about 9 weeks old. Now, most pediatricians do not make you do this. So if you've never heard this and you have a new baby and you're not boiling your water, I do not want you to panic. The reason this is a recommendation is because powdered formula is not sterile, meaning there's always a very slim chance that there are bacteria in the powdered formula. Ready-to-feed formula has been sterilized. We know 100% there's no living bacteria. So before baby's 9 weeks old, we all know this, they have a very compromised immune system. Not really compromised, it just is not developed yet. They don't have much of an immune system they're learning about. They're learning how to appropriately handle things like bacteria. Now, in the US, we have fantastically clean water, and so it's usually not a problem at all. So if your pediatrician hasn't brought it up, don't worry about it. The reasons they may bring it up, or it may be particularly helpful for you to boil water for your newborn baby, is if baby was born very premature and you've just gone home from the hospital. So those babies we know are at risk for some health conditions and their immune systems are particularly underdeveloped because they were born early. If your baby has some kind of metabolic condition or known immunological disease, so we know that they're going to have a compromised immune system, or occasionally, if your baby is a healthy baby, but they just got super sick, they're in the middle of having a really bad virus, so they might be really busy fighting an infection, and we just want to minimize the risk of exposing them to anything else in those first precious 9 weeks when they're so little and vulnerable. So if that is you, call your pediatrician first, and if your pediatrician says, yeah, you might want to boil your water, this is how you want to do it. So I've got my notes here. I did start having my cocktail, which I don't always recommend if you're making formula, but my baby's 2 now, so I can partake. So here's what you do. First, ideally you want to designate a little space in your kitchen where you do your formula prep, and that's all you do. Nobody's kitchen's that big, but ideally if you are very lucky and you have a huge kitchen, designate a space where all you do is make formula and that part of the kitchen doesn't get dirty. If you're a normal person, you do your best. So first you want to sterilize all the stuff you're using. So if you have a formula pitcher, or if you're going to be making right into bottles, you want those sterilized. You can either boil them in a huge sauce pot or just run them on a sterile setting in your dishwasher if your dishwasher has a hot setting. Most dishwashers do now. So you want that done ahead of time. If they're dry and you have recently sterilized them, that's fine. So I have my pretend, I don't have a formula pitcher anymore, so this is a pitcher that I have sterilized this pitcher. I just put it in a huge pot and boiled it. I think that's all I'm going to need. So then here's what you want to do. This is the mom hack. You take a saucepan that's going to hold as much water as you need. So I'm going to pretend I have an exclusively formula-fed baby. They're a really little thing, so they're only drinking like 20 ounces of formula for the whole day. So I'm making all of their formula at once for the whole day. So I'm going to pour way more than 20 ounces into a pot. And ideally, I want to have some demarcation on the pot so I know exactly how much, say, like 40 ounces is. It's right here. If you don't have a pot like that, that's cool. But I want you to use the same amount of water every time to save yourself time. So get a pitcher and draw a mark on it where 40 ounces is and then pour it in, or do something so that you're always boiling the same amount of water. Then I've got my meat thermometer. I'm putting it right into the water all the way down, and I'm going to leave it in there the whole time. And then I also have a whisk here that I'm going to boil. If you use a whisk to mix up your whole pitcher of formula, I want you to have the whisk in the water so that it's boiling and thus sterilizing in real time. If you've got a formula pitcher or something mechanical that's, stirring inside the pitcher, then you've already sterilized it because you already sterilized all your pitcher. Okay, so now we're ready to go. I feel like I'm running my own cooking show. It's kind of fun. I'm not that good of a cook. So I'm going to put it on my biggest burner. That's not a Rachel recommendation. That's because I want this as fast as possible. So I'm going to put it on my biggest burner. God, hopefully I don't blow up my kitchen here. I turned on the wrong burner. There we go. Try again. I put it on my biggest burner. I turned it on to high, and we're going to try to speed this up. So then I've got my notes here because I've just had a baby, so I can't even remember where my underwear is. So I'm going to write down, it's 7:24 when I turn the heat on as high as it can go. Then we're going to do a little speed, so I go like, okay, now it's, I don't know how long it's going to be, probably like 8-ish minutes later. The first time you do this, it's annoying. I want you to sit here and just sit and literally watch the pot boil. So watch the pot boil so that as soon as it's to a rolling boil, not those tiny fizzy bubbles, like nice bubbles. Okay, then we're going to say, all right, it's 7:42 or whatever it is. And I'm going to write that down so I know that it was exactly 12 minutes, however many minutes it was. So this is and then I'm going to turn it off also so I don't burn my kitchen down. So the first time you do this, it's annoying. But then every time you do it from now on, you pour exactly the same amount of water in, you put your stuff in the pot, and then you say, Siri, set an alarm for 12 minutes and buy me brown eyeliner. I need brown eyeliner. And then you can go about doing whatever you're doing. The alarm will go off, and you can come back, and the water will be right at a boil. If your whisk isn't fully submerged, mine is not, then I would want you to turn it so the whole thing, all of the surfaces get boiled. But the meat thermometer is in there, so that's been sterilized. Everything's been boiled. So then the first time you do it, you record when it boiled. Write that down. Then you got to sit here again. Now you only have to do this once. You sit here again and you wait until the temperature of the water cools off to roughly 175 degrees Fahrenheit. So the reason we want it to not be boiling but not be too cool is we're going to then make our formula as soon as the water has reached this, special midpoint. And that's because we want the water hot enough that it's going to kill any potential bacteria that's in your formula. I don't like recommending making the formula with boiling water on the off chance that you have some fragile nutrients like some of the B vitamins that can be degraded a little bit with boiling water. I mean, that seems to just make sense. You wouldn't boil your multivitamin, which is basically what formula is. However, if you let it cool lower than 158 degrees Fahrenheit, which is roughly 70 degrees Celsius, that's too cool and it will not kill bacteria. We're specifically worried about Chronobacter, which is that rare but very scary bacteria that can especially affect preemie babies. So I'm going to sit here. I'm going to watch the dial moving till it gets to, so I feel like 175 is a nice safe medium between 212, which is boiling, and 158, which is the absolute coolest it can be. So at 175, I watch, I write down exactly how much time it was, again, for exactly this much water to cool those number of degrees to 175, depending on, and it's going to depend on how much water you're using, how hot your room is. It'll probably be like 10-ish minutes. So I record that. Now I know it takes 12 minutes to boil, turn it off, 10 minutes to cool. Then you're ready to make your formula. So I should have said this first, but before you get started, or now is a fine time, you want to wash your hands really well with soap and water, sing happy birthday. This is a real washing of the hands. And then ideally, obviously, you want a clean counter, but then even after that, take a disinfectant wipe if you're a mom. You have these around. If you're a potty training mom, you have them in every room. And you want to disinfect really well the surface where you're going to be making your formula. And I have my sterile pitcher here. I have my formula here. This is not an advertisement for Enfamil. I actually have this formula because sometimes I do formula education for residents, pediatric residents, and I'm in New York, and our WIC contract is with Enfamil, so they deal with Enfamil a lot, and I make them taste it because every pediatrician should know what formula tastes like. So you have your formula, you have your water, and then you are going to pour exactly how much water you need into your pitcher. So if you're using a formula pitcher, you have lines on the side, so you know exactly how much you need. So I'm going to take my water. I'm going to hold on to my meat thermometer and whisk so it doesn't fall out. Should have practiced this. I've been out of the game for a while. Okay, so I'm going to pour right up to the line of exactly how many ounces I need. Awesome. Remember, my water's at 175 degrees, so it's pretty good. Oh, my meat thermometer just came out. My meat thermometer is no longer sterile, but that's okay because we're done with it. So we have our pitcher here, and then you're going to take your can of formula. I specifically got this can because cans have free floating scoops in there, which I hate. Why won't they just come up with something that holds the scoop? You've got a nice box and there's a holder for the scoop. That's awesome. Because ideally, the actual scoop part will never, ever be touched by any human body. Your fingers should only ever touch the handle, and ideally thus that's the dirty part of the scoop, and that should never touch the formula. Inevitably that's going to happen, but we try our best. So I'm going to take the top off. This is a really new can. So I'm going to show you, I have the scoop sticking straight up, and that's always how I put it back. So I'm very careful to just grab the top. You know, I've got my nice, I'm not actually going to scoop formula in there because I don't want to waste it because I don't have a baby at home that I'm feeding. So you have your nice scoops, and I'm going to pour them in exactly how many scoops I need. What did I say? If I'm making 20 ounces, I'll need 10 scoops. Then I'm going to have my empty scoop. I'm going to put it back, like scoop up some formula and shove it down in there, but then leave the top up. And then I put the top back on, and I kind of use the top to push it over to the side. And this way, the next time I open it, that top of the scoop is ready for me to grab so that none of my dirty human parts actually touch the formula. Okay, so now I have my formula, my Proton formula in there. So if you are not using a formula pitcher with a stirrer, you've got your sterile whisk that you can put in, and you can whisk up really, really well so it's perfectly made. If you have enough bottles, a much more convenient thing for you to do is to have all, 8 of your bottles lined up. They've all been sterilized, so run through the sterile cycle in your dishwasher or boiled. And then what you're doing is just making several bottles. So if they're 3 ounces a piece, you're doing 3 ounces of water into each, and then your 1.5 scoops into each. And if you're making it in a bottle, you can shake once you've got the nipple and the top on. That's a lot of bottles to have. Not everybody has that many bottles lying around. After you've got your formula made, you either need to feed it as soon as possible. You can't give a baby formula that's 175 degrees. It will burn them. So pour whatever bottle you're about to feed and let it cool. You can run it, if it's sealed, run it under cold water to help cool it off. Or let it sit on the counter for a couple more minutes and, squirt a little bit on the inside of your wrist to see if it's cool enough. Or, of course, if you made a pitcher, most of that formula is going to be used for the bottles for the rest of the day, so it needs to immediately go into the refrigerator. If you're using a formula pitcher, really any kind of pitcher that has a top, you would have the top to put on. I've gotten rid of mine. So when you have the top to put on, the top was sterilized beforehand, and it goes into the fridge. If you're just using like a juice pitcher, like I am using, you want to cover it. It doesn't have to be airtight, but you want to cover it basically to prevent any particulates or bacteria from falling into it in your refrigerator. You got a lot of food in your refrigerator. Some of it is in some degree of mold. You don't even know it's there, but it's there. So you want to cover your pitcher. My pitcher's uneven. If your pitcher's flat, you can put a clean plate on top of it. So mine is uneven, so I'm just going to use a bowl. This is just a dish, like a normal bowl. I would have sterilized this. Anything that I'm using, I would have boiled beforehand to sterilize. So I'm just going to put it right on top. And this way, it's just much harder for pathogens in the air to go up and under. We're doing our best. And then we're going to take this whole thing just like this and put it right into the refrigerator. So the first time you do this, it is a huge pain in the ass. It's going to take you like 40 minutes. So if your baby gets a virus, you're devastated, you got to start boiling your water. Go home and do it like as soon as they've had a bottle so you have time to pull it all together. And you've got your mommy notes here because it's really hard to do math if you're postpartum and aren't sleeping at all. Then every day you wake up and whatever time you're making your formula, you put the exact amount of water, you got the meat thermometer as a backup, you tell Siri, tell me when it's 12 minutes, you come, turn the stove off. Siri, tell me in 15 minutes, come, make your formula. And then you can just get it into routine and it's much easier. So even if your baby, for example, if you're mixed feeding and you are working on increasing your breast milk supply so your baby's drinking less and less formula, I still find it easier to make this at least boil the same amount of water. I think it still saves you time than boiling less water and sitting here waiting and watching. So just always boil the same amount of water, pick a nice conservative overestimate of how much water you need, and then that way you can go about your business, rock and, take care of your baby instead of just sitting here watching while your baby's crying. So those are my biggest mom tips. I really hope that was helpful. Again, I really, really don't want this to panic anybody who hasn't been boiling their formula. There's very specific cases in which pediatricians would suggest that you boil the water if you're using powdered formula. If they haven't brought it up, it probably doesn't apply to you. If you're worried about it, call them. They work for you. That's what they're for. And again, this is very important in other countries where the safety of the water is questionable or may be safe some days, but not other days. So if you're traveling to one of those countries, it may be something that you would want to start doing. That kind of thing. You know how to take care of your baby. I don't need to say much more about that. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I will get to them right away. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being patient that I haven't done this in a really long time. I don't know the next time I'll be able to do a video without my kiddos, so I'll do a particularly complicated video again then. Have a wonderful week and I'll see you guys next week. Bye. You're still watching.